Well, I pray you're finding this study of Hebrews as encouraging and edifying and equipping as I am, certainly giving me confidence and confidence to persevere in my devotion and my service. And I pray that you're finding it the same way as did these original readers of the book of Hebrews. So today we're going to be in chapter 7, verses 20 to 22 is our next section, where it talks about Jesus' eternal priesthood. Again, another reason why it's superior to the Levitical priesthood is that it's eternal. So let's read these verses. There are only a few verses here, so let's go ahead and read through them. He said, "And to the extent that it was not without an oath, for they indeed became priests without an oath, but he was with an oath through the one who said to him, 'The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever.' By the same extent, also, Jesus became the guarantee of a better covenant." So let's back up here and find out what he was talking about. He's talking about the introduction of a better hope through which we come near to God. So as we discussed last time, this is the perfect priesthood of Melchizedek, a priesthood that brings perfection. And then he goes on to talk about here that this is a permanent priesthood, an eternal priesthood. And it's built on a better oath. Now notice the repetition here. First he puts it negatively. It was not without an oath, that it was, and to the extent that it was not without an oath in verse 20. A little confusing there because we're not used to phrasing things that way. So we can say that Jesus became a priest with an oath, with an oath. He's drawing a contrast here between the Levitical priesthood, which was not guaranteed with an oath, and Jesus' priesthood, which is. So verse 21 then, he's saying, "For indeed they became priests," they, the Levitical priests, without an oath. How did they become priests? By being born into a priestly family. That's how they became a priest. They didn't have an oath. Yes, God commissioned that family, but those individual priests never received an oath from God. Only Jesus did. And that's what he's saying here in verse 21. They became priests without an oath, but he, Jesus, with an oath, through the one who said to him. Don't jump over that. This is God's divine oath. This is Jesus's eternal priesthood has a divine guarantee. That's the point he's making here. Why can we be perseverant in our faith even though we might be opposed? Because we have a priest that intercedes for us that has eternal priesthood with a divine guarantee. God has pledged his whole being on Jesus's forever priesthood. Jesus is our constant priest before God. The Levites, as I said, became priests through genealogy. Jesus' eternal priesthood is guaranteed by God. That's why it's so much better. Verse 22, to the same extent, remember he just said in the previous section that when there's a change in the priesthood, there's a change in the law. So he's saying to the same extent that there was a change in the priesthood, Jesus has also become the guarantee of a better covenant, So a better covenant, he's talking about, as you'll see here, the new covenant, which is going to replace the old covenant of the Mosaic law. And we're going to get into that a little bit more deeply as we go on here. But for now, let's just stop there and meditate on the fact that Jesus has this eternal priesthood. Now, when we look at it again from the perspective of the original hearers, they know of a priesthood and they've been ministered to a priesthood that was just this endless cycle of priests throughout the years and over the years. So you had these priests that would come and go month by month, year by year, generation by generation, from the time of Moses to the time of Christ. It's 1,500 years, brothers and sisters, that they experience this. But Jesus brings with himself a new, singular, eternal, perfect, permanent priesthood. And with it comes a new law, this new covenant. And that is how they come near to God in verse 19, when it talks about this, how to perfection to draw near to God, a better hope. Now, you and I, we're not like these first century Jews. We are not tempted to hang on to the Levitical law, are we? We're not going to give up our bacon. We are not going to start sacrificing animals in the temple in Jerusalem. The temple's gone. We don't do that anymore. The issue for us, for you and I, is perseverance, is confidence, is certainty in the promises of Jesus. So put yourselves in their sandals if you can. And this exhortation that Jesus is better, so trust him more. Jesus is perfection. Don't go back to what's imperfect. Jesus is our hope. He's our confidence. He's our security. How do we appropriate this? How do we apply it to ourselves? By being more and more singularly singularly focused on Jesus and certain that his ministry for us is eternal and it is infinitely effective. God bless you.